Welcome to the Powerlifting and Power Ballads podcast, where we bring you a weekly dose of powerlifting news, tips, and training advice with a touch of 80s rock ballads. This podcast is presented by Team Roar Powerlifting, your source of the most comprehensive coaching and meet day preparation. Here are your hosts, Josh Rohr and Lara Sturm.
All right, welcome to the Powerlifting and Power Ballads podcast. I'm your host, Lara Sturm.
And I'm just some guy, Josh Rohr.
I'm one of the hosts, okay? Boy, you can be a host too.
Cool.
Boy, welcome to episode 60, where Josh recovers from his butt hurtedness from just now. And we're going to talk about the new meets added to the Georgia calendar. What do we got, Josh?
All right, so there is a rookie meet that just popped up on the calendar for January 9th, which is a Sunday. In Suwanee, Georgia. It's called the Trueborn Rookie Rumble. And basically it is for anybody that has never posted a total in a USA powerlifting event. So they're actually going to go through and verify that you've never successfully completed a total. Basically, it's for people that are first-time competitors. So if you've been on the fence about getting into a meet, this would be a good meet for you because every single lifter is going to be essentially first-time competitor in USA powerlifting. So those of you on the fence,
I love it.
Do it.
I love it. That's really awesome. Because there's so many people that are like, oh, I'm not competitive, or, I don't want to do a meet because I'm going to have to be in a singlet and everybody else is used to it or something, right? Like, this is everybody that's new.
Singlets are great though.
I love that.
If you ever thrown a party and
says the man who has partied in a singlet.
Yeah, it's a party theme. People appreciate it. So there's another.
Everyone wear a singlet.
Exactly. There's another meet that is just added to the calendar in Prattville, Alabama, and I'm only bringing that up because one of our Georgia meet directors is one of the co-meet directors there. USA Powerlifting Kilos on the Coosa. Christina Myers is running it along with Elizabeth Turner, who was the co-meet director for the Atlanta Open. So that should be a pretty good meet. So if you're looking for a meet, I know a lot of the meets in Georgia.
What's the date on that?
December 4th. Sorry. So it's the same meet as the Savannah meet, same day as the Savannah meet, but the rest of the meets the rest of the year in Georgia are already full. They're sold out. So if you're looking for a meet, that would probably be the next closest one to go to. It's roughly 2.5 hours from Atlanta, so not too far, but it should be well run. I know Christina has run great meets in the past, and so has Elizabeth. So they're teaming up on this one, so it should be pretty good.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Opportunities. Because lifters want to lift.
That's true.
Which brings us to our next bullet point about USA Powerlifting and the IPF.
Yeah. So there are, nominations closed, I think, on September 1st or September 2nd, something like that, for the Raw Worlds. And we had US had a bunch of lifters nominated. A lot of them were nominated as the top total in their weight class. But basically when the dust settled and the nominations closed, a few of our top lifters all of a sudden were listed as US Virgin Islands instead of USA. So I have mixed feelings on this, to be honest, from I guess. And the reason I say that, as a lifter, like, they found a way to compete at Worlds. So I can't really fault them for that. Like, I think when you're at that level, and especially being that close, like, they found out, like, the Raw team found out that USA Powerlifting was suspended, like, a month and a half right before month and a half. I can't even remember the timeline right before.
They've got their airfare booked. They're training.
Right. They're training. They got their airfare, like, they're planning to go. So, not being able to go, that's basically just like last minute, that just sucks. So if they found a way to go, like, and compete for US Virgin Islands, then I can't fault them for that, really. The part I'm torn about, though, is like, it doesn't make me see, I sound like a bad person when I say this. It makes me mad that they had to go to US Virgin Islands to compete when Russia can just compete as an independent. Like, I can't get over that. I'm stuck on that. And basically the IPF said that US lifters can't lift. Well, they found a way to lift for USVI. So, you know, I guess my opinion is, what's the difference? Are US lifters lifting for USVI or lifting as unattached? Like, why does that make the difference? Anyway, I won't harp on that too long.
I'm with you there.
But at the end of the day, like, go ahead.
For some sports like basketball and hockey, I know that for them to be able to compete in the Olympics, there's a different federation for that. This is kind of doing almost the same thing again.
Yeah, it kind of is. And that's a funny thing, because we even, USA Powerlifting even kind of proposed that. I say kind of, we did propose that 2-level system, like have a, IPF affiliate that is only like the elite lifters that are going to worlds, they're 100% WADA compliant, and then have the separate organization that, does our drug testing like we do. That way the IPF can still say that they're 100% WADA compliant, because that connection is something that we do internally, and the IPF isn't affiliated. And they basically said that, they basically just said, no, we're not doing that. So yeah, what, to your point, like this, I mean, how is this much different?
The same thing.
It's the same thing. It's just, yeah, I don't know. It's weird. Like, I'm happy for the lifters. Like, at the end of the day, like, the lifters deserved to be able to go compete. So I'm glad that at least some of them were able to make that switch. And I don't know how that actually took place, because I wasn't aware of especially for the Raw team, an avenue with that time frame to be able to do it, because initial nominations were already posted. So, and not all of the team did. Like, there's, we had 3 on the open team, 3 men and 3 women made the change out of, the 8 that were nominated. So I don't know the avenue that took place to make that happen. I kind of don't want to question it too much, I guess, either, because, what if it wasn't fully on the up and up? I don't want them to not be able to lift. So we will not talk anymore on that. All we know is they're getting a lift, some of them. So let's, I guess, be happy for them.
Yeah, I agree. I had some mixed feelings when I first heard about that, because I was just like, oh, how does that work? I don't understand. But, at the end of the day, lifters want to lift. I mean, and if they can do it and they've gotten so close to it, lift. Yeah. Go. I applaud it.
And further down the road is open worlds. I do know some of our national team lifters are going to be lifting for US Virgin Islands as well. That's in November. And I get that also. Like, that wasn't quite the short notice. However, it's a World Games year, and the way you get to World Games is lifting at the World Championships. So, if they can find a way to, and I think it's a more legit change at that point, because the timeline is drawn out, like the final nominations weren't done, things like that. So, again, there's mixed feelings there, because why couldn't they just lift independently? But if they have to go to US Virgin Islands to be able to try to make the World Games, then, I'm behind you guys.
Hey, and if somehow I had to go to Virgin Islands, oh, that'd be terrible.
Yeah. Well, I don't know that they're actually, that's the other thing. They're not actually moving there. It's just basically what they're putting on there.
Right, because they're a territory.
Yeah. So like I said, I don't know fully how it works, but some of our lifters are getting a lift, and I'm for that. So
yeah,
if you want to come back and lift at USA Powerlifting, you're more than welcome to. So, the newsletter went out recently, and Larry kind of addressed that said basically IPF rules prohibit it, but at the end of the day, that's not who we are. Punishing athletes and referees for taking their best opportunities isn't USA Powerlifting. So compete where you want, and you are welcome on our platform regardless. So I think that's,
awesome.
I think it answers some questions for people, because, prior to us being suspended, like, that was the rule, you couldn't come back. But now it's like, well, if we're not, if we're not, the gateway to the IPF right now, then, go take your opportunities, how you can get them.
Right.
And we're not encouraging people to leave USA Powerlifting, obviously, but, it's one of those things, like, we don't want to be, we're not going to be the dictators that say, hey, you can't leave, do what you
Right.
want.
You can live for us or no one else.
At the end of the
And then you
day,
can't.
like, yeah, and I kind of look at it like this, like, at the end of the day, if our meets and what we have going on in USA Powerlifting isn't the best, like, isn't that appealing, then maybe you shouldn't lift with us. Like, we are trying to be, put on the best meets, put on the best competition, things like that. And, I think we will. So I think, I don't think we need to force people to do it. I think they'll want to on their own.
Right. Well, I've heard recently about some pro level meets. That sounded pretty exciting. There was even one talking about a pro level meet just for masters. And I was like, oh, yes, finally masters getting some recognition.
Yeah.
So I really hope that happens.
Yeah. Saber's working
cool.
on that in Virginia. And, that's something that's being discussed with the pro series that'll be, happening starting next year too. So yeah, like I said, there's gotta be a next level, right? And there's got to be something that people want to strive for competition wise. And that's what we're putting together. So.
All right. Awesome. All right. So we had some questions that came in this week.
Yeah. I figured we start a little Q&A thing. I think we'll start taking like two questions every episode and kind of answer them in detail. And normally, this is the first week we've done it. But I feel like we'll pick like the best two questions and answer them. However, this week we only had two questions come in. So these are the two.
All right. So send us your questions and we're going to work on answering these ones. So the first question comes from Austin Brown. And his Instagram handle is AustinBrown105. And I love this question. Can we go ahead and admit that raw lifters are not as mentally strong as equipped?
Short answer, no. We're not going to say that.
It's not the elitist.
Yeah. Well, here's the other thing. Every part of me wants to say yes, because I know like how much, I guess, how difficult it is and how much pain sometimes there is with equipped lifting. But I've worked with some equipped lifters in the past, and I'm not going to name any names, but I know a lot of raw lifters that are way more strong mentally than they were. Like you're looking at me. No, I'm not looking.
Because I feel like you're looking at me right now.
No, no, I'm not talking about you, but I think you do have to have a certain level of mental fortitude, I guess, to be able to do equipped lifting. And, there's been a lot of equipped lifters that I don't think had that. So blanket statement, no, I'm not going to say that. Next question.
All right. And this one comes to us from Lifting on a Prayer. Do you think lifting equipped makes raw lifters stronger at a faster rate than lifting raw?
This is an awesome question. And I do want to dig into this a little bit. Not all the time, but yes, I think there are a lot of situations where putting on some equipment does help raw lifters progress faster. So like what everybody kind of knows is like equipped lifters, as they're getting ready for a meet and things like that, their raw lifts typically will go down because they're wearing the gear all the time and, fine tuning it, getting ready to peak in the equipment. So that gives the illusion that it makes you weaker raw. Well, in that short time frame, yes, as you're peaking, but in general, I think it actually does help you get stronger raw in the fact that it does provide a very significant overload. So you're training at heavier weights than you're used to, or you're able to raw. So it's kind of like using a slingshot or something like that. It provides an overload factor where you get, you basically get, an extra load on your nervous system. So your nervous system starts to adapt to that. Combine that in with like a lot of the popularity now is like the blood flow restriction training. The equipment kind of does that as well. Maybe not as specifically, but there are some studies that have been happening on, blood flow restriction training as it pertains to using equipment. But I think the part that actually is the biggest factor in this is the fine tuning the technique. So, if you for example, in the bench press, if you have a little bit of an inconsistency in where you touch the bar on your chest, or, the bar path is a little bit different, when you put on a bench shirt, that inconsistency is going to become amplified like tenfold. So you're not going to be able to control the bar when you get inconsistent. So it forces you to be a lot more consistent with your technique, which then when you go back to raw or you take the shirt off, that's a skill that you've learned by wearing the shirt. So it doesn't just go away when you take the shirt off. Like that's attention to detail that you've become aware of, that you now are able to transfer into your raw lifting. So, for every single lifter, I would say no, but I would say a good amount of raw lifters could benefit and make progress faster by putting on gear because of those factors.
And I would just piggyback on that by just saying, yeah, what you just said. Lazy man's way, but yeah.
Profound.
Dead on. It makes you pay attention to your technique so much more, and that overload is nice.
Yeah, and I think
it's just fun.
It is fun, but I think the perception is that the gear does the work for you, but it's actually not the case. Like you do have to. There's so many other little things you have to be aware of and execute correctly in order to make the gear work for you, and those things are also important for raw lifting. Like it's just you're not as aware of them. So I think it would be beneficial for most raw lifters to do, and I'm not saying train year round in gear or anything like that, but to do a 4 or 6 week block in gear just to really, shine light on what you're doing wrong, because even from the naked eye, like you might not see anything, but you put on a shirt and, your first rep is great. Second rep is a train wreck. Well, it starts making you really focus on, okay, what caused that? Why was that second rep bad? Where if you're lifting raw, like that little inconsistency, you can still muscle it out and probably be fine. But again, if you're trying to maximize what you can do, you want to be as perfect as you can on every single rep and be as consistent as you can. And I think the gear just kind of forces you to go that direction a little bit faster.
Yep. So I agree. You're making me want to go put my knee wraps on and squat a little.
Yeah, go do it. Nothing's stopping you.
There is nothing, actually. We started deadlifting a little bit more consistently, and we actually realized that part of the reason we weren't deadlifting as enough was because, all right, don't laugh at me. We didn't have a deadlift jack. And just the pain in the assness of like not having a deadlift jack and putting the weights on, and right. So
well, you can just like roll onto a 2.5 or something, right?
Yeah. And there's two of us. One of us could just hold the bar, the other one put it on.
And you also,
it's not that hard.
You also know a guy that probably could just build one pretty quick out of wood, even. Yeah. Anything.
Yeah. But yeah, so we bought one for all of $75, and we will have no excuse for not deadlifting.
Awesome.
All the time. Yes. And
all the time.
my deadlift is coming back up after my surgery from 2018. So
awesome.
Finally, and a little strong. Lifting the chicken coop, I think, helps.
Are we willing to say that there will be a comeback meet at some point? I'll put you on the spot.
I don't think so.
Yeah, not willing to say that. That's fair. But you're not saying a hard no. I'll take it.
Not saying it won't.
So you're telling me there's a chance.
There's a chance. Cool. There's a chance.
Right, let's get on to some voting.
Dan's over here. He's like, yes, the band could get back together. Yes.
Yeah. All right, let's get on to the
all right, voting.
Here. All right. So we are on round 2. The first matchup we had, and this is the tournament for the list of the best 5 80s one-hit wonders. Second round, the first matchup we had was number 1 ranked Chris Elmore versus number 8 Eric, and Chris won by a score of 31-14. So Chris moves on. Number 4 Cindi versus number 12 Amy. Cindi moves on to face Chris in round 3 with a score of 24-18. So round 3 we'll see Chris Elmore versus Cindi Yeager. Number 2 Lara. Whoop whoop. So I gotta root for you now because you're the only one left in the tournament from the co-host side. I got annihilated last week. So you were up against number 10, Chris Peterson. Lara, you move on with a score of 25-16.
Woohoo.
Woo. Number 3, Jim versus number 6, Gary. Jim moves on with a score of 36-3. That was
Nice.
pretty lopsided vote there.
That's pretty, yeah.
Yep. So Lara, you're
Very.
going to face Jim next week.
Yes.
That would be our
Awesome.
semifinal.
Well, and what I'm hoping will happen will be that Chris Elmore and I have another showdown where he gets to recruit all of his 12-year-old buddies, and I get to beg people on Instagram to vote for me, and then they still won't. I still have 2 friends that voted against me. When I showed my list, they were like, "Well, the other list is clearly better." So
I thought you were about to end that sentence at, well, I have 2 friends, period.
Well, I had 2 friends. Let me just say.
Right. Had 2 friends. Yeah. So,
Moyer and Ken Gack, you were dead to me.
Oh man, that's sad. So just a reminder that the tournament voting is every Friday. You can vote at the PL Ballads podcast Instagram story and Team Roar Instagram story, and the winner of the tournament is going to get a BCA Extreme from Quest Athletics.
So we're going to move into our powerlifting situation. A 74-kilo lifter with a 725 kilo total, which is 106.44 GL points, and 120 lifter with a 1,000 kilo total, which is 106.14 GL points, are arguing about who the better lifter is. Wow, really? I guess this could happen. The 74-kilo lifter placed 4th at nationals, and the 120-plus lifter placed 2nd at nationals. They asked for your input. Who is the better lifter? Josh Rohr.
Yeah, this is stupid. So it's also petty. I think as a blanket statement, it's just dumb. I know I made this up, but the more I'm reading it, it's just like, it's stupid to me. Why are you arguing about it? Like if at nationals, okay, the super heavyweight lifter did better at nationals. Okay. But if you're looking at the good lift points, which basically compares all lifters pound for pound, the 74 kilo lifter was slightly better based on that. So if we're doing like a pro meet, the 74 kilo lifter would win with those numbers because they have a higher good lift points. So it depends on what you value here. Like, in a pro meet, then the 74 kilo lifter would have been the better lifter. If you're talking about who did better at nationals, then I would say the super heavyweight did better because they placed 2nd. So it's I don't know. It's a weird question, but I don't know. I to say one's flat out better than the other is kind of dumb, and I refuse to answer it.
Right. Yeah, I would agree. I'd be like, yeah, you both suck. No one cares.
Yeah. You know what? You both suck. Get out of here.
I mean, if it's a lighthearted argument, then maybe I wouldn't say it quite that way. But
yeah, I don't think it ever is. I don't think it ever is with this, because if they're arguing about who the better, you have a small lifter and a super heavyweight lifter, and both usually have strong feelings about the formulas. So if they're going straight off the formula, like a lot of the heavyweight lifters, they typically feel like they are not represented accurately because the depth is not always there when they do the statistics for the numbers. So a lot of times, and I think that's kind of reflective of, a 4th place lifter at nationals is ranked higher than a 2nd place heavyweight lifter at nationals, because just the depth isn't always there. Maybe, I don't know. But then again, like, you kind of go, I don't know. So I don't understand statistics all the way. So like, I don't know how they did it exactly, but I don't know. I just think it's a weird, it's definitely going to be a heated argument because, the lighter lifters are always about the formula because, the heavyweight, here's the argument. The heavyweight lifters always argue that it should just be about how much you lift. If you lift more, you are the better lifter. And the analogy I always hear is like, if you have your loved one is changing a tire on a car, right? And it falls on them, Do you want the 74 kilo lifter to come lift it off of them because they're pound for pound stronger? Or do you want the strongest lifter to come, like the heavyweight lifter, to come lift it off of them? Right. That's the argument. I get that. Like, yeah, they lift more weight. But on the flip side, like there's got to be, I don't know. I'm not going to answer this. I think this is I don't want to say I hate that I wrote this question, but I don't have an answer. But I feel like this is going to be an argument on the comments when and whatever. I guess that's fun too.
We shall see. We'll see what people have to say.
Yeah.
I still stick by my "you both suck. No one cares. Move on."
Yeah. You both are irrelevant now.
Yeah, really. I mean, it's just ego lifting at that point if you're talking about best, because really, who cares?
Yeah, and both are really good. Like both medaled at nationals, so like you're both really good. Like, I don't know, whatever.
Right. Hey, congratulations.
Yeah.
And medaling at nationals, doesn't it depend on who else you're lifting against?
Yeah.
That just puts things outside of what you can affect. So your placement at nationals is just irrelevant. It just doesn't matter. All right, so here's our new lifter tip. And I like this one. Keep track of your body weight in training when setting up your game plan for a meet. It's important to know what you weighed when you hit those training numbers. If you were 10% over your weight class in training, those training numbers are likely not an accurate reflection of your actual strength at competition body weight. Game plan accordingly.
Yep, for
Agree
sure.
or disagree?
Agree. I think, especially, I guess we'll backtrack a little bit with a new lifter, somebody doing their first meet or even their second meet. I don't know that they should be cutting weight for their first meets anyway. So this kind of might be irrelevant, but I do know a lot of newer lifters that have done a meet or two, they train and they're significantly over their weight class when they're training and they're hitting like really good numbers. And then at the meet, they're missing, 5-10 kilos less than they hit in the gym. And they don't know why. Well, it's because you're training too heavy. Like, usually as a general rule, I don't like people to train over 5% of their weight class, like 5% over their weight class. So, if you're training 10% over, I mean, that's a significant amount of weight. Like, for some of the middle weights, that can be a whole weight class heavier that you're training. And to cut that much weight is going to absolutely change your leverages. It's going to change the amount of muscle mass you're carrying likely. And you're not going to be as strong when if you weigh 20 pounds less, you're not going to be as strong as the person that was 20 pounds heavier. It's science. So, you got to be able to do that, to keep that into perspective and, don't try to cut all that weight at once too. Like if you are 10% over, you can cut down slow, probably maintain your strength, if you do it right over a very significantly long period of time. But, that's just not typically what lifters do. They typically, I got to meet in 2 weeks. I'm going to, just lose 15 pounds in the next 2 weeks. Well, okay,
right.
Great plan. Not.
Right. Especially if you're at the day of the meet, like having to spit a lot and the stress of that. And yeah, it can really throw you off.
And I don't, I'm actually, again, these are tips for newer lifters. I think the 10% rule is for everybody. Like not being that high, 5% cutoff is kind of the max, I think, for any level lifter. But, the spitting and cutting water weight, if done right, I think can be an advantage because you're actually going to lift during the meet heavier than your weight class. And that's an advantage, but it has to be done right. And, it's something that you don't just do on a whim and not really know what you're doing. Like you have to be very, very detailed with it. But again, with new lifters, they shouldn't be doing that anyway, in my opinion. Just, lift where you weigh, don't add that in as a factor. Once you get to a more established level of competition where you've done it more often, then you can do it. So.
Yep. I agree.
Cool.
Awesome. So we're going to have some tournament voting this Friday. So make sure to vote for me specifically. And I'm sorry, I got totally thrown off by my phone ringing and realizing I did put it on silent again. Follow our podcast on Facebook and Instagram at PL Ballads Podcast and shoot us a DM or email us. Make sure to send us your questions so we can answer them on the fly here on the podcast. And yeah.
Awesome. We'll see you guys next week. Later.
All right. Bye now.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode of the Powerlifting and Power Ballads podcast, please remember to subscribe and share it with your friends.